welcome to this evening's webinar. Today we're working alongside the West Yorkshire Combined Authority and providing a webinar about EPC and what every landlord needs to know. My name's Emma Lower and I'll be chairing this evening, and I've had the privilege of being the CEO for Lendology for the past 6 years, and that means working alongside both homeowners and landlords to make their homes warmer, safer and more sustainable. So this is such an important topic, and I'm really pleased that so many of you could join us. Today's session is all about understanding those changes around EPC and exploring the opportunities and the challenges it creates for landlords. So there'll be an opportunity for you to ask questions at the end of the session. So please do pop any of those into the Q&A section, please. Also, thank you to all of those who submitted questions early, as these have really helped shape some of the areas our speakers are going to be covering tonight. So we've got a fantastic panel of people lined up for you for this evening. We have Jeremy Laycock from the West Yorkshire Combined Authority, Meera Chindooroy from the National Residential Landlords Association. We have Rachel Owens from the National Retrofit Hub, and we have Shannon Nutkins from Lendology. So keep those questions coming in. I've got a few already lined up, if not many come in, but thanks once again for being here, and let's get started. So Jeremy, please, would you like to get the conversation going?
Thank you, Emma. Yeah, I'm just going to share my screen. There we go. So yeah, thank you. So my name is Jeremy Laycock. I am a Programme Development Lead in the Home Energy West Yorkshire team here at the West Yorkshire Combined Authority. It's a bit of a mouthful, as you can tell. So Home Energy West Yorkshire is the service which was established about a year ago to deliver on the Combined Authority's work to improve the energy efficiency of homes across the region. So I'm going to cover a couple of areas in my presentation. So first is a short overview of changes that are due to be implemented by national government in relation to private rental properties. And then second, I'm going to give you a bit more information about Home Energy West Yorkshire and what we do. So in February 2025, as I'm sure many of you are aware, the national government published a consultation on improving energy performance of privately rented homes. So current regulations require private rental properties to be at an EPC E or above to be legally rented out. So government is now proposing moving this to EPC C and above. So the new proposals would require properties to be at EPC C by 2028 for new tenancies and by 2030 for existing tenancies. So there's also a cap proposed of £15,000 per property for these upgrades, with a 10-year period before anything else would need to be spent on retrofitting. So we're also expecting it to be a fabric first approach, which would require energy efficiency upgrades such as insulation to be taken first, and then followed by secondary measures, which include smart readiness such as batteries or solar PV or heating system upgrades. So Home Energy West Yorkshire has a vision that everyone in West Yorkshire can live in a warm, comfortable and low carbon home. And we've been developing a programme of services that can help to deliver that. So in 2024 election manifesto, the Mayor of West Yorkshire pledged to begin a programme of retrofit for all social homes in West Yorkshire. So we've been working with the West Yorkshire Housing Partnership to improve the region's social housing stock, supported by government funding schemes such as the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund and now the Warm Homes Social Housing Fund. And we're working on long-term plans for a strategic approach to that. We've got other programmes such as the West Yorkshire Housing Solar PV and Battery Storage Programme, which is set up to enable delivery of solar panels and battery installations on up to 1,500 social housing homes in West Yorkshire. We're also developing area-based schemes. So this is a programme of kind of pilot projects across West Yorkshire, which is really designed to explore innovative technological delivery and financial models that can address some of the challenges associated with retrofitting mixed tenure communities, looking at kind of streets and neighbourhood approaches. So the aim of this is really to develop scalable blueprints that can accelerate progress and drive that demand for retrofit. I'm going to skip on to the next slide at this point, which has got a bit more detail. So one of the programs that we're working on is a low interest loan scheme, which we're working on with Lendology. So this really it's supporting homeowners, which includes private landlords across West Yorkshire, with a loan at 3.26%. Which can be used for home energy improvements such as insulation, solar panels, heat pumps, and the loans are for a period of up to 10 years. I think you're going to hear a bit more about them in a later presentation as well. We have been running over the last year a residential collective buying scheme for solar PV. So this was really, the idea of it was to reduce the upfront costs of installing solar panels through economies of scale. So it was really taking a collective approach, bringing together a large number of residents to purchase solar PV. So we had 645 households took part in our pilot scheme. Many of them combined it actually with the low interest loan to finance the solar panels. That scheme's closed, but we're working on a follow-up scheme to that. So information will be kind of published about that in due course. Another scheme which might be of interest to the people on this call is our customer advice service. So that's due to launch later in the autumn, coming very soon, and it'll provide a single front door for trusted information and support about how to improve the energy efficiency of homes across West Yorkshire. So it's going to provide free impartial advice, information about how you can improve the property, as well as information about funding and support schemes that you might be eligible for. There's also additional services which can provide more in-depth retrofit assessment or an all-inclusive service to deliver the retrofit projects through a trusted supplier. And these additional services will be charged for though. So what's coming next? So we're working on longer term plans for our home energy team, including current development of a home energy West Yorkshire plan. So we're doing a lot of engagement with stakeholders to really understand the key challenges, where the Combined Authority can add value and support people like yourselves in retrofitting your properties. So it's really great actually to see this event, how much interest there is, and there's a lot of learning that we can take. We're really keen to build on this, particularly all the questions that you've got, and see how we can follow up this event. So yeah, really keen to see this as a first step. So yeah, that's me. Thank you very much. And yeah, I'll pass back to Emma.
Lovely. Thanks, Jeremy. I know you have more slides that'll come out with the pack. So thank you very much. We've really been tight on time for people for 5 minutes. So thank you very much for sharing the overview of what's happening in West Yorkshire Combined Authority area. Now I'd like to hand across to Meera, if that's okay.
Thanks very much, Emma, and thanks everyone for inviting me today. I will, as you say, rattle through this in 5 minutes. For those who aren't aware of the NRLA, we are the largest landlords association representing over 110,000 members. If you don't know what we do, please take a look at our website, which you can access via the QR code. So I was asked to speak today about the barriers and the opportunities arising from the proposed MEES regulations. And as Jeremy set out, the government has put these to consultation. We're still waiting for the response from the government on exactly what the regulations will look like. And we know from the research that we've done with our members and from speaking with our members and other landlords that there are real concerns about some of the proposals. And in fact, the level of concern around the MEES proposals is more intense than the concerns that we also hear around the implementation of the Renters' Rights Bill. The government has proposed a timeline whereby the regulations will be finalised and laid in late 2026. And so what that means is that you won't know exactly what's required until that point when the regulations are laid. And with the regulations proposed requiring an EPC for new tenancies from 2028, there's a very short window during which you may need to do upgrades to your property. As proposed in the consultation, the cost cap of £15,000 would only kick in once those regulations are laid. So if you were to do any works prior to the regulations being laid, it wouldn't count towards the cost cap. And this is a real disincentive to landlords to take early action, and something that we've raised and others have raised with government as not helping the situation in terms of supporting landlords to make those changes as early as they can. It also interacts with the Renters' Rights Bill insofar as you'll be aware that the Renters' Rights Bill will be coming into force likely in the next few months. It will mean that there is a change from having fixed terms to periodic tenancies, with tenants able to give 2 months notice at any point. So for landlords, there is a risk that if their tenants give notice at any point after the 2028 deadline, they will be facing a new tenancy and possibly an extended void period whilst they try to do the works of the property to get it up to an EPCC to meet the new regulations. So there's a real need to provide a longer period of time for landlords to comply. Further worsened by the lack of tradespeople that are able to do the work. So research by Kingfisher suggests there's currently over 160,000 fewer tradespeople than are needed within the sector. They project that that will increase to 250,000 by 2030. So all in all, there needs to be a much improved lead-in time for these changes, and we're actually proposing that there should be a slightly different approach with the fabric measures required by 2030 and the secondary measures required by 2036 to allow landlords to make those changes within a reasonable amount of time, whilst also ensuring that those fabric measures which make a real difference to tenants are prioritised. I've also mentioned here, or indicated here, the risk for student landlords. I know there will be student landlords listening in today, with the potential requirement for 2028. That might mean that there is only the summer of 2027 to make any changes to your property during that void period at the turnover of tenancies. The other real challenge that landlords are raising with us is, of course, the costs involved. Up to £15,000 is a significant cost for many landlords, and 2 in 5 landlords have told us that they feel that the cost barriers are very or extremely significant. Obviously, you're here today partly because you want to hear about the opportunities that are available to find loans and grants and so on. And that's, again, something that we are pushing the government to make more easily available to landlords. And it's great to hear that there are lots of schemes locally that will be accessible to you. So what are the opportunities? Well, if you look at the detail of the consultation, it proposes that current EPC certificates will remain valid till their expiry. So these new regulations wouldn't mean that your current EPC would be would no longer be valid. And so if you have an EPCC currently, or if you're on the cusp of an EPCC, it could be well worth your while to make those changes to ensure that you have a C under the current regulations, and that will remain valid for during the new regulations. We should mention that there is a second consultation that the government has not yet published, which will change the way in which EPCs are measured. So it's well worth you looking at your portfolio and seeing whether there are any properties which you can upgrade for a relatively low cost, even though that won't count towards the new cost cap. Of course, consider the grants that are available for your property, and make sure that you are aware of everything that is available locally, and get ahead by looking into tradespeople. Identify trusted tradespeople that you can you can use when you want to do the upgrades to your property. Identify more than one tradesperson, so that if they're not available at the time that you need them, you have others who you would be able to approach. And if you don't have any that you have in mind at the moment, make sure you speak to other landlords and get recommendations from them about who you should approach. There's also an opportunity, if you do undertake all of those, if you have all of those in place, to look at properties that are coming onto the market. A significant portion of landlords are considering either selling part of their portfolio to fund these upgrades, or selling any properties that are below a D because they aren't in a position to upgrade their properties. So if you are, there may be an opportunity for you to invest and upgrade those properties and keep them in the private rented market, and available to tenants to make their homes in. So that was the very whistle-stop tour. Just a reminder that we have our national conference coming up on the 5th of November, and there will be a panel on energy efficiency with experts from across the sector. So please do take a look at that if you'd like to find out more.
Fantastic. Meera, thank you so much. You covered a lot of ground there, and I really appreciate we haven't really given you a huge amount of time. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Now, can I hand across to Rachel from the National Retrofit Hub?
Thanks very much, Emma. Yeah, I'll just start sharing my screen. Yeah, my name's Rachel. I'm from the National Retrofit Hub. We're a non-profit collaborative organisation that tries to bring together all those involved in the retrofit sector. I'm not going to talk too much about us. You can find out more on our website, but essentially we want to try and overcome some of the barriers that we've already identified to retrofit at scale, bring people together to share what they know, distill their ideas, and make that into either insights that we can help inform policy decisions, or actionable resources that those in the industry can use to do more and better work. So what's the context? Why are the government doing this? We know that the energy performance of a home is also closely linked to the health of a home, particularly if we're thinking about fabric. And the private rental sector is some of the worst performing homes if you think about other sectors like social housing and owner occupied. So 1 in 10 privately rented homes has a category 1 health hazard. What that means is the person living in that home is likely to need to seek medical attention because of that hazard within the next 12 months. So they're very severe hazards. We also know that 8% of privately rented homes wouldn't meet the decent home standard due to poor thermal comfort. And about 9% of privately rented homes do have problems with damp and mold. So it's a really urgent issue that the government are trying to tackle by improving the standards within minimum energy efficiency. So what are they going to mean? It's worth saying that right now we don't know 100% for sure. So there was a MEES consultation which closed a few months ago, and the government set out a few different options for how they might implement higher standards. I'm going to talk about their preferred option because I'm guessing that might be the one that they go with. And this is going to be based on the new EPC, which is going to have a host of new metrics, and it's going to be different to the EPC that you've got right now. The government's preference was to ask for people to first meet a fabric rating, and then once you've met that rating, you would have to meet either a smart readiness or a heating system rating, and you as a landlord could choose which one was right for you, the home, the tenant, and your finances. The reason why it's in that order is because essentially there is that cost cap being proposed. So say if you were spending up to the cost cap, but you couldn't quite get all the way to full compliance, it would ensure that you're prioritizing that fabric work first before you move on to the other elements. And we think that's because the government are trying to make sure that we're improving the health and thermal comfort of those tenants. What might you need to do for each of these? So for a fabric rating, we're going to be looking at things like insulation, walls, loft, floors, windows, air tightness. Ventilation might come into it, and we've also suggested that the state of repair of the building has a massive impact on how it performs, and that should be included as well. For the smart readiness, it's going to be looking at smart controls, renewables like photovoltaic panels, and also batteries that really help your tenants reduce their energy use and energy cost. And then the heating system metric is going to be asking you to switch to low carbon heat. So switch from an oil or a gas boiler to potentially a heat pump, ground source, air source, and there might also be other technologies that are available to be used within that. We don't know exactly how the sort of standards will be designed. And as Meera mentioned, the engine that sits behind the EPC is also being changed. So right now, someone couldn't tell you if you do X, Y, and Z to your home, you will definitely meet the new standards that are about to come in. But there is an opportunity, as Meera also mentioned, to act now. So in the consultation, they included an option that says if you've currently got an EPCC, that would keep you compliant until that EPC expires. That means if you get a new EPC right now, it's going to be compliant for the next 10 years because that's how long your EPC is valid for. Because we don't know precisely what's going to happen, you might be able to get ahead of the game there. If you get an EPCC now, you know you've got that comfort for the next 10 years that you're going to be compliant, and you'll have much more time then to work towards things like the heat decarbonisation that's going to become a requirement over that 10-year time period. The final thing I say as well is we really would recommend seeking professional guidance. Every home is different. The right measures for different homes will be different. The way that our walls perform, the way that we need to ventilate our home, that all needs to be taken into account so that we're avoiding unintended consequences. So we'd always say, get yourself a retrofit assessment, get yourself a retrofit plan, get them in advance so that you can know your plan, you can build that into the timelines. So when a tenant maybe does give you notice, you've already got that plan in place, you already know what you need to do, and you know that you're going to do that in a way that protects your home for the future. And that's it from me.
Lovely. Rachel, thank you. And some really good tips there. That 10-year plan sounds like an idea to me, EPCs. Wonderful, lovely. So we're now whizzing on through to our final presenter. Shannon, can I ask you to share your presentation with us? Thank you.
I'm Shannon, I'm Senior Case Manager at Lendology. Today I'll be sharing some insights from our landlords, ones that we've helped to create warmer and greener homes. To begin with, I wanted to share a key story from one of our landlords. We worked with a company landlord refurbishing a derelict property, focusing on creating an upmarket home for private tenants. The building, because it was derelict, required substantial improvements. It was completely run down. Alongside the energy improvements, it also required structural work and real kind of integral builders going in and working on essential home improvements. Once the landlord had worked on the structural works, they came to Lendology to understand how they could look at enhancing the energy efficiency of the property. One of the key things for them and their portfolio was creating homes that they would live in themselves. So it was really important for them to consider how to reduce the energy costs. So they started by looking at the fabric first approach, looking at insulating the property, investing in, this one was triple glazing, and then eventually they looked at installing a heat pump to lower the energy bills. This was a success for everyone, including the landlord, the local community, and of course Lendology, who helped to fund the works. The property was completely transformed and it's now a 6-bed HMO renovated for happy tenants. And the landlord pointed out the success of accessing finance through Lendology. That's just one of many stories that we've got to share, and we have got a fantastic video that I'd like to share with everyone.
So with regards to the community, we try and supply very nice upmarket properties. So if it's something that we'd want to personally live in ourselves, we know that everybody else would also want to live in it, or hope we'd want to live in it. We found Lendology via a website, but we also got recommended by a friend. Worked really well. Harriet and the team were fantastic, helped us throughout the entire process. Very simple and very easy to use. We've got multiple bridges and mortgage companies that we've used previously, and we found it a much simpler process, a lot less red tape, if that makes sense, with regards to going through all of it. And yeah, it was swift and very easy to use.
Bathroom in the house was quite bad, really. Yeah. So once we got into there, we realised quite how bad it was. But so we removed the chimney, And then we went, while we're here, we'll do full bore on insulating everything. So really insulation on the walls, and then the floor, we could dig out the floor and the windows. So the back wing was 100%, and then so that was the main, probably the main.
And what would you say to other people who are thinking about applying for a loan with Lendology? Oh, definitely do it.
Yeah.
And the properties are going to be very energy efficient.
Very energy efficient.
You're very keen to make sure that happens.
Yeah.
There's a demand for property in the area. We've got 2 homes that will be available in 6 months or so's time.
So we all know that energy bills are one of the biggest pressures facing households right now. And at the same time, landlords across the country are preparing for tighter EPC regulations. But we wanted to point out that energy efficiency isn't just about compliance. It helps to reduce costs, cutting carbon, and can also uplift your property valuations whilst creating efficient homes that tenants want to stay in and improving well-being and retention. So at Lendology, we've supported hundreds of landlords with upgrades, things like insulation, glazing, and low carbon heating measures. We've seen landlords achieve improvements in EPC ratings. A key example was one where we worked on a property where the EPC was originally an E, and we got it up to the C rating, helping tenants to save on bills. Landlords also report feeling more confident in preparing for those proposed changes after getting those works done. We also know that warmer homes mean lower heating costs, reducing issues like fuel poverty, and optimising health and well-being for tenants. We know that landlords want to invest in creating efficient warm homes, and with the right support, you can make those changes to benefit not only you as a landlord, but your tenants and the planet. I think that's everything from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon. Brilliant. What I'd like to do now is to move on to the questions. And I think we've been able to answer the majority of the questions that have come into the Q&A during the session. So what I'd like to do is go back to the questions that were put in prior to the event. So Shannon, but firstly, if I come to you, one of the questions was, will funding be means tested and who would be eligible?
Yeah, so in terms of Lendology loans, none of our loans are means tested. We complete an individual financial assessment with any of our customers, and we can tailor our loans depending on your individual circumstances. When it comes to grants, I know that the boiler upgrade scheme isn't means tested, but other energy grants like the eco funding are means tested for lower income households. There's lots of evidence that the government are working on new grants given the upcoming EPC regulations. So it'll be interesting to understand what the eligibility looks like. And I would point anyone that is interested over to the government website to keep in the loop on those changes.
Lovely. Thanks, Shannon. Rachel, if we could move on to you now, if that's okay. One of the questions again that came in is, what is the position on homes that cannot be made into the required EPC grade, or tenants do not want you to do the changes?
Yeah, so like with the current regulations, there will be exemptions, and there'll be exemptions for things like when you can't get permission. So for example, if your EPC needs you to get double glazing, you live in a conservation area or a listed building where you just cannot get consent, that will mean that you can get an exemption. If your tenant says no to changes, that will also be a reason to be exempt, but we would say try as best you can to work with the tenants, give them a few different options for when you might do the works, try and support them to have the works done because it would be better for them. There will also be exemptions if some of the works recommended in the EPC actually aren't suitable for your home. So for example, if a solid wall insulation isn't the right option for you, you'll be able to claim an exemption with the right expert support. So I think what they're trying to do here is to make sure that we're not putting together measures that are going to have a negative impact on buildings, and you will be able to use that exemption system, but do try and work with it as much as you can. The last thing I'll say though is that a lot of the time people can't do work because of the leasehold freehold relationship. That hopefully will get easier because some of these requirements will be placed also on freehold, those superior landlords. So a freeholder might be therefore encouraged to do works that will improve the home's within a freehold block. So some of those tensions might get smoothed over with some of the updates.
Lovely. And Paul has just added a question into the chat saying it seems that even if you achieve a C rating now, when the new metrics come in, there's a possibility that the property will not meet a C rating. But from what you said earlier, you said there's that 10 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, so currently an EPC is valid for 10 years. And what the government are suggesting is that current EPCs will keep being compliant until their EPC expires. It might be at that point, and I'm just guessing here, that you might need to do something in terms of PVs or low carbon heat, which maybe isn't incentivized so much in the current EPC. But our feeling is that if you get the fabric up to an EPCC right now, that should continue to be compliant, depending on the design of the new system.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Meera, so a question for you this time. What are the EPC rules for an HMO where all bills are included? Very good question.
So currently, only HMOs where the whole property is let as a whole require an EPC. If you're letting room only basis, then you don't need an EPC for those tenancies. But the proposal is that this is extended to a property, an HMO property where a single room is let within that HMO. So it would require an HMO to have an EPC for the whole property as well. So it is important that HMO landlords pay attention to what the government is saying, because this is likely to apply to them as well.
Lovely. Thank you. Nice answer there. Jeremy, we've got one for the council part here. Could the council help landlords by negotiating wholesale prices for the services, e.g. EPC inspections that are needed?
Yeah, thanks, Emma. I guess just to start, I should clarify with the Combined Authority rather than the council.
Beg your pardon, yeah.
It's a really interesting question, actually. I guess one of the reasons for events like this is for us to kind of get more of an understanding of how we can support landlords and other stakeholders across the region, how we can kind of make the process of retrofitting properties easier. So we've been, over the last few years, obviously we've been piloting different projects such as our collective buy-in scheme, which I touched on earlier. So that first phase covered solar PV. It also included batteries and EV chargers. The main one that people took up was the solar PV. But we're looking at how we can expand that now with a second phase. And in this second phase, we're keen to broaden it. So that would include things like heat pumps and insulation. We're kind of at the stage of developing that scheme at the moment. We're not planning that it would include EPC assessments, but it's a really interesting idea, actually, of whether this model could be applied in other areas like EPCs. I guess one of the things that we're keen to do is bring down costs and remove barriers to retrofit, but we're also really keen to develop opportunities for local businesses, develop that local supply chain across West Yorkshire so that we can really deliver on our ambitions for retrofit. So I guess if there's a way that we can combine those two and sort of think about exploring opportunities for EPC assessments as part of future schemes like that, then yeah, it'd be great to look at it. Something we have to take away, but good idea.
Lovely, thank you. Shall we, if we stick with you, Jeremy, as well, is someone who'd put in a question, I'd like to know more about the funding options that are available to support landlords.
Okay, yeah. So I think in my presentation, I gave you a bit of an overview of some of the schemes that we've got. So things like that residential collective buying scheme that can bring down the costs and obviously the loan. But there are also a number of different grant schemes available. Obviously, it depends on the eligibility of your property and the tenants. We as a combined authority don't have any grants at the moment, but there are some national schemes, things like the boiler upgrade scheme that's been mentioned, that's specifically for heat pumps. That's £7,500 per installation. There's other schemes that can provide additional support with insulation, solar panels, heat pumps. Probably most people have heard of things like the energy company obligation, ECO, Great British Insulation Scheme. There's a new scheme that people may not be aware of, which is the local homes, the Warm Homes Local Grant Scheme. So you can find information about all of those schemes online, and particularly for that Warm Homes Local Grant Scheme, there's a postcode checker and an eligibility checker. But as I mentioned, we're going to launch quite soon our Home Energy West Yorkshire Advice Service. And that service is really, it's aiming to be that kind of one-stop shop, a kind of front door for people who want information about how they can retrofit properties. So that service will provide that kind of free support with understanding what grants and funding and different schemes you might be eligible for. So that'll be a really good place to go to get that kind of clear information about what you might be able to access.
Lovely. Thanks, Jeremy. Really helpful. Rachel, we've got an absolute corker for you, I think, because someone said in 25 years of renting property, I've never had a tenant ask a question or be interested in EPC. So why bother? I thought you might like to take that one on.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a few different things to say here, and there's a number of different ways to look at it. So firstly, more than 1 in 5 private renters live in fuel poverty. So I think there are 122 of you on this call. So about 25 of you probably have tenants that live in fuel poverty, more of you if you own multiple properties. Doing these upgrades, making their homes not only more energy efficient, lowering their bills, but also making them healthy, are going to make your tenants more resilient. It's going to be more likely that they'll be able to pay their rent. It's going to be less likely that they'll have to take time off work through illnesses, less chance of falling into rental arrears, less chance of void periods. And also a really well-performing home also should reduce your maintenance costs because you're not having to constantly go back and fix things that go wrong, fix damp and mold. The other thing I would say is that tenants might not have talked to you about this, but tenants are really worried about raising concerns with landlords. Citizens Advice did some research that found that over 1 in 3 renters experiencing problems with damp, cold or mold hadn't made a complaint. And lots of the time it's because they're worried that their rent will go up, they're worried that they might be evicted. So just because someone isn't coming to you with an issue doesn't mean to say that there's not an issue that is impacting their lives. I guess the third thing I'd say is that we know from our research that this is a very regulation-driven sector, and this is why these regulations are coming in. At the end of the day, you'll need to bother to comply with the law, so you might as well get on it as soon as you can.
Lovely, thank you. And again, some real benefits there for actually keeping your tenants safe and warm and happy, meaning you get more rent and hopefully they stay longer. So yeah, thank you for that. Shannon, if we come back to you, one of the questions we were asked was, does having a limited company affect which funding options are available to landlords in terms of loans?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Em. So if I start off with grants again, I think Jeremy spoke about the boiler upgrade scheme earlier, the one for heat pumps. So I know that limited companies can apply for government grants like that one, but they must meet the eligibility criteria that is set out by the government. So it depends on the grant, but there are grants that limited companies can apply for. And then when it comes to Lendology, we can absolutely lend to limited companies. Our assessment approach is totally tailored by the individual or the company. So our lending decisions are based on several factors, including affordability and borrowing commitments, but we can lend to limited companies. The only thing to point out there is in West Yorkshire, part of the lending criteria is that we can only lend to landlords who have 4 properties or less. That's a criteria that's part of the policy. So you will need to meet that to be eligible for a loan, and it's something to consider if you're a larger portfolio landlord.
Lovely. Thank you. Thanks, Shannon. I can see there are a lot of questions coming in for the Combined Authority and the individual councils, and I know that the West Yorkshire Combined Authority are really keen to respond to these questions. So if we haven't had an opportunity to respond to all of them this evening, what we will be doing is picking them all up, and we will get back to each of you with a response on those questions that we haven't been able to get round to this evening. I've got one additional question for you, Meera, if that's okay. If the current government doesn't win the next election, what are the chances of the new rules staying? That's a nice small question.
As we've been talking about, these are regulations. They're going to be laid before Parliament. They will be the law. Even if we get a new government, they would have to undo those regulations in order to change the law. And moreover, the government has committed to back a number of years ago, committed to net zero by 2050 as a legal commitment for the UK. So this is the direction of travel. The previous government was on this direction of travel. This government is on this direction of travel. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen at the next election, but the need to upgrade properties as part of a wider move towards becoming greener is there. And as an organisation, we support homes being more energy efficient. It's just the way, making sure that that's done in a practical way that works for landlords and tenants.
Lovely. Thanks, Meera. I think I've been amazed by the questions that have come in and the number of people who are on the call. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening as we've tried to answer some of these questions. I think we've got time for one final question, and it's for you, Rachel, if that's okay. And it's, how should a landlord ensure that retrofitting work will not create more problems than it solves, e.g. damp or condensation?
Yeah, I thought this was such a good question, and I think we've all seen in the media recently some really poor stories of works that have gone wrong, and I think all of us are really keen that we avoid that, because these buildings are your assets, and you want to make sure that they're really robust and resilient for the long term. I guess one issue we have at the moment is that the current recommendations within an EPC aren't necessarily great. They're based on an algorithm. They're not based on what your home actually needs. When we responded to the EPC consultation back at the start of the year, we really said that those recommendations do need to be improved. But I'd always recommend people seek expert advice. I think the services that Jeremy was talking about with their one-stop shop are going to be really fantastic to give that. But if you're not in that area, if those services aren't available to you, seek out a retrofit assessor, seek out a designer, seek out a retrofit advisor who can make you an assessment, who can put together a plan for you. And I think that's really important for you, not just for now, but also the long term. So you don't have to do everything in it all at once, but you can start to think about when you might phase things in. Maybe your boiler's probably going to break in 3 years or something. You can start to work towards that within the plan. And we've also suggested that the cost of those types of plans should be included within the cost cap, so that you are, you're not disbenefiting from doing the right thing. So we're hoping that we see that come through from the government as well. So yeah, get that expert advice and make sure you're doing the right thing for your home.
Fantastic. Lovely. Rachel, thank you so much. A great question come in from Dave saying in the chat, saying, could all the Q&As be shared, and including those not answered on the call? Absolutely. We'll take every intention to do that. It might take us a few days to get everybody coordinated to get the right answers for you there, Dave, but that's exactly what we do. What I think that leaves me to do is to say thank you so much to all of our speakers this evening for taking the time out. And thank you to the Combined Authority for letting us sort of host it on their behalf. Thank you all for joining us this evening. It feels to me like there's an opportunity for us to hold another one of these. So I'm looking across to Jeremy, going, Jeremy, it might be a plan that we organise another one in the not too distant future. So thank you all. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Meera, Shannon, Jeremy. Thank you for joining me this evening. And I wish everyone a lovely evening. And fingers crossed, we'll see you again before too long with another session. But thank you very much indeed.